Houston. Hello. Oh, we're live. All right. Okay. We've got the Instagram and the Facebook together. Hey. Welcome. Rachael Maddox here, and this is both my roommate, my friend, my colleague, Nadia Munla.
Hey, guys.
So I wanted to do this little live here because Nadia and I, again, we live together. I'm trying to get in the Instagram and the Facebook.
I know. It's like
awkward.
When you're multitasking, it just...
Okay.
People figure it out.
All right, great. So welcome. Nadia and I are going to do a little talk today about the overlap of dance and embodiment and trauma resolution and healing, both our personal journeys and also how we incorporate these things into our professional offerings. Mm-hmm. So Nadia is the creator of a program called Embody Dance, right?
Yes.
And she has an embodied teacher training where she teaches healers, guides, mystics, leaders, people who run workshops, etc., how to incorporate embodiment into their work in a way that's liberating, healing, freeing, specifically around the feminine parts of us that have been shamed and repressed. So obviously we have a lot of overlap. We do sometimes have dance parties in the house, except we need to have a lot more.
Yes.
to be announced soon enough. So yeah, we're just going to jam on some things. Nadia, anything else you want to share about your work or...
No, thank you. That was such a great intro to what I do in the world. I mean, really, I guess I can share a little bit about how I got into all of this, which is that I personally was very, very disconnected from my body for the longest time. And this was through a lot of my own personal trauma and many different versions of trauma throughout the years that had me feel disconnected from my feminine body. And so both through my own journey and then after supporting women for over 10 years in dropping back into their bodies, connecting more to their bodies, I was able to really isolate what I feel like are three really distinct messages that get sort of plastered on women's bodies that will then disconnect them from their true essence and from their experience of truth in their own bodies. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we dive in. But yeah.
So before you get into that, I'm curious, give us a little or a heart or write something if you're I understand this feeling of having messages plastered onto my body that make me feel like I can't really express myself. I mean, earlier this week, I asked on my Facebook wall, hey, peeps who've experienced shame or repression from sexuality, what are some of the messages that you got? And it was just this slew of really traumatic stuff. And so what would it be like to be able to dance that off in a safe space of other women? Yay, happy to see you too.
Heart eyes, yay.
Cool.
We're
so give us a little resonance if you're I wish I could dance this trauma out.
Yeah, and I think that also with Embody, what we did is we sort of took what is already I think a lot of us instinctually know that dance breaks are good, right? But sometimes there's our brains aren't on board with it. We don't really know, okay, what are we doing? Why does this feel good? And how can I make this even more potent and more of a healing modality? And so in Embody, what we actually do is we go through a musical journey over the hour where we get to explore and embody these different archetypes, which are, and I'll just go into them now since we're here, might as well,
Great.
Right?
And then we're going to talk about both of our histories with dance and how we got into it, which is a really funny story.
That's fun. So basically, there's three archetypes that we work with in the classic Embody class, and that is basically your sensual siren, your warrior queen, and your inner little girl. And each one of these is what I imagine is our internal army that helps us battle these messages that get plastered. So what are these messages that get plastered on our bodies?
I think it's funny that you've got that internal army battle language because you've got such that warrior archetype going. Whereas with me, I'm wait, but I don't want to go to battle. I just want to somehow peacefully dissolve this crap.
Totally, right. So, cool. So basically what the three messages that come up. So the sensual siren exists because we get this message that our erotic and our sensual is unsafe. Mm-hmm. So I mean, comment if you have had that feeling before. I feel like this is something that last year we really, as women, we got very vocal about all the stuff that happened to us that had us feel really unsafe for the longest time, over many generations too, right? Not just in our own personal lives. So the sensual siren is here to like reclaim this part of us, like that actually is naturally erotic, right? But in a safe space where we are devoid of, judgment and the male gaze and certain things that can have us feel a bit uncomfortable around reconnecting to that part of us.
So let's just pause there with the sensual siren, and let's talk a little bit about our personal stories and then get into the other two archetypes, because I think it'll be fun for people to hear.
Okay, cool.
So like, for example, I'll just dive in and just say that when I first started dancing, the way I got into dance was kind of accidentally. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved to dance, right? I'm sure you did too. Most kids love to dance, pretty much, unless they're like shamed and repressed at a young age, which also happens. But I actually rediscovered dance at Burning Man, kind of accidentally. I might have been on some drugs, and, went to my first 5 Rhythms experience and was like, what is this? Everyone is being so free. Like, holy crap, I could be this free. And, through that experience, I ended up moving to Portland right after my first time going to Burning Man, and there was an amazing ecstatic dance community there. And so I would go every Wednesday and Sunday, every Wednesday night and Sunday morning, and I was all of a sudden in this mosh pit, essentially, not actual mosh pit, but like a mosh pit of society, of men, of women, of people of different, sexualities, and wanting to emerge into that sensual siren, like wanting to embrace my sensuality, but at the same time feeling totally terrified. This was a time when I was like definitely deep in my own trauma spell. I had chronic vulva pain, so vulvodynia. I was in hyperarousal, like almost all the time, and was experiencing different levels of sexual violence. And so it was like definitely an edge to be there dancing. And yet after about 2 years, well, actually after 6 months of going twice a week, sometimes just like in the fetal position crying, like, I can't do this, why am I here? To eventually gaining trust, gaining confidence, started to really find that expressionista, that sensual siren, that part of me that was like, oh, it's safe because I know how to like say no. And I know how to protect myself if I need to. And all of a sudden started forming incredible relationships through dance with people. So that was, a big part of my healing journey, was like that playing field.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, I started off when I was really young. I was obsessed with having a tutu and being on stage as a ballerina. And so I started training at the Maryland Youth Ballet, which is actually where they told me also I was like 8 or 9, that basically I couldn't go on point ever because my knees were like messed up and I would have a lot of pain. And so I was like devastated, and it was the first moment that I felt like my body was like an obstacle to my dreams. So I really shut down emotionally around expressing through my body at that point. And it wasn't until my 20s, in a very unhealthy, I guess, dysfunctional way, I got into rave culture. And at that point, I was like dancing for 20 hours. I mean, I was just like, no one could stop me, because I was like, all of these years of like, repressed dance was coming back out but ultimately it wasn't sustainable, obviously, to be in that lifestyle. And so I started to find sensual movement as a way that was more meditative, to actually really tap back in, but in a healthy way, where I did not need to be drinking or doing all sorts of things to like be able to let myself loose. And so for me, my foray into expressing myself through movement did start off with first the sensual siren, actually, which is how we start class. So I guess that's indicative of my journey. And then for me, what happened was when I first went into my first 5 rhythms class, I actually had, what was challenging for me was not the sensual piece, it was the play. It was getting that.
I can't play now. It takes a little warming up.
You can play.
Again?
You're so playful.
I am? Okay, good. I don't feel playful on the inside. I feel like meh.
Really? No,
I feel like a stick in the mud. Like I can't get out of it.
No.
But it's not really true. It's just, how we feel.
Well, speaking of a stick, like I literally walked out and said to myself, because I was like 20 minutes into that class when I realized that it was a free-form class. My friend had dragged me there, and I just thought it was like someone was going to choreograph something and we were going to follow it. And then I realized, I have to do my own thing. And I like walked out 20 minutes later in total panic and was like, okay, Nadia, you need to get the stick out of your butt. And that's basically like what I proceeded to do. And I walked back in because I was like, I'm not going to leave my friend. And we couldn't talk on the dance floor. So it was a whole thing. I was like, how do I tell her I'm going to leave? So I ended up walking back in and I ended up having the most cathartic experience of my life. And I was like, wait a second, I can access this amount of ecstasy without actually being on ecstasy. Like it was really awesome. And so, so from there, it just lit a fire for me to start to bring this to the world, because there was probably a lot of other women like me who wouldn't go to a class like that, and who maybe wouldn't go to a sensual movement class because they feel like not sexy enough or not confident enough, but they would possibly go to a class that, basically had a little bit of just like a beginner exploration of all these different things, which is what Embody is.
Right, cool. So, Nadia teaches, if you're just joining, this dance class called Embody, and she trains people to also be embodied teachers. And we're going through the 3 archetypes of what's involved in that, and also just told a few of our little stories about how we got into dance as a healing modality. And so we've gone through the sensual siren. So we've got a warrior queen and a little girl, right?
So the warrior queen is really, she's this part of us that is, well, obviously she's a warrior and she's a queen. So she's really about strength and sovereignty and leadership in a different way, a more feminine leader. So when you think about like, the very typical like matriarchs, okay, that's really who comes to mind for the warrior queen. She has this like primal matriarch energy where she's able to navigate. Beyonce is totally a warrior queen. Yeah. I also think like even more like elder energy too. So it can be sort of like you have that spectrum. Right. Where you are
Michelle Obama.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So you come in and you can be in chaos and anger. This is a part of the class where we go through the musical piece that's darker. So it's really about starting to stretch your ability to be in chaos and in anger, which is a lot of what's going on in the world right now, and to still be able to take it and alchemize it into power. So how do we do that through embody? Because lots of times when we're faced with chaos and anger, we shut down, right? Right. And we know that because, Rachael so beautifully teaches us why that happens. It's part of our survival instinct. But if there's a way, if we can start to just edge ourselves to that place, stretch ourselves to that place where we're able to take it and instead of have it shut us down, have it pull us back up and use our nose to fight for something, to be in leadership, right? Which is so much of what we're being called to do in the world right now. And so this is just the embodied experience of that. So that's really warrior queen.
I love that because it's like 2 things I want to mention. One is just that it's an embodied way to start building your capacity to be with intensity. Yes. And one thing that we also wanted to touch on is this idea of bottom up versus top down healing. Bottom up being body based and top down being like psychology based, and how these are both super important things. But the efficiency of the body, the efficiency of going to the nervous system, the effectiveness of it, the sustainability of it, the like longevity of actually getting something in your cells as opposed to just an idea that you have to like somehow forcefully remind yourself of on a daily basis is so potent. And so that's one of the things I think is really epic and cool about teaching Embody and learning to be an Embody teacher is you're getting in your muscle memory what it feels like to be safe in your sensuality, what it feels like to be able to be powerful amidst intensity, and what it feels like to be innocent and needy, I'm assuming is the little girl.
Or playful. Yes, and playful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that third message is around play being unproductive. So, I mean, it's just so innate. We don't even think about it like, oh, wait, that's actually not true.
So wait, the first two messages were for the one that we're shaking off with the sensual siren is...
That your sensuality is unsafe.
Sensuality is unsafe. Okay, let's shake that shit off. Number 2
is that leadership can only look one way and that it can't be, like a body-based, body wisdom leadership.
Okay, so your body doesn't have any leadership capacity. Okay.
Or wisdom. And then 3, that play is unproductive.
Play is unproductive. Your body's unwise, play is unproductive. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're shaking those things off. And do you have new kind of mantras for your, or not?
I let everyone figure it. It's the feeling you get after you've liberated yourself from these messages, right? Because we're so alive in that reality that once we peel that off, we get to experience what does it feel like to not have that, because everyone's truth is going to be a little bit different, right?
Totally.
So when someone is like, oh, play can be productive, well, their expression of play can be so different in their bodies, and it could show up in different places in your body. It could be in your fingertips, right? It could be in your toes. It could be in your belly, in your heart, right? It could be in like the flick of your hair. Yeah, like it could be in so many places.
And I think my play would be like feisty.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
totally.
That's cool.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. So basically we do that, and then towards the end we go into also integration. So we have a couple of songs where, what does it actually feel like to be in your full range? Because so often as women we have to show up in a certain role. We are the mom, we are the hot girlfriend, we are the the great employee and whatnot. And so we're not really, it's hard for us we're told we have to box ourselves off. Like you can only be this way, at the office, you can't be sexy. At, picking up the kids from kindergarten, you have to be, you can't be like an employee mode, whatever. So basically the idea is like, how do you have an embodied experience of actually being in your full range? Because it's being in your full range that means you have access to your full power.
Yeah.
All of you.
Right. So maybe just taking like an internal pulse and asking yourself, which of these archetypes do I feel most empowered in? And which do I feel like if I added it to the mix of my leadership, I'd be bringing a whole lot more. I think for me, the play is the part that I could use a little more of. And I feel like that part's easiest for you. Or like, well, you seem sometimes very playful to me.
Really? That's so funny. It's so funny.
What about
how we
you?
see each
Which
other.
one's easiest for you?
Oh, sensual siren.
I think the Queen Warrior is easiest for me.
Oh, yeah.
And then the sensual, then the play.
Yeah. Cool.
What about you all listening? Which one feels easiest for you, hardest for you?
Oh, the rave days.
Cherie says the rave days. Cherie, you should do Nadia's training program.
It's like my musical preference is perfect for anyone who has a background in raving.
That's hilarious.
But we actually go through all types of music, and that was part of my impetus with Embody as well in creating it. Is that like I would go to all these different types of classes, and I love so many types of music, but I always felt like there was just one genre. You could go, you'd go into like an ecstatic dance class and it was just like electronic. You'd go to whatever, it would just be tribal. And then, but I go to like, we do everything.
Nadia is a great DJ. I can attest. Okay, so let's wrap this up, right? What else do we have in here? Okay, I can't read her handwriting. She's got some notes down there, but she's a great dancer. Handwriting.
That's true. Well, I mean, you guys have seen Rachel's handwriting. It's like epic.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Okay, so we wanted to just cover like one or two other things. What does this one say? Oh, we already did that.
Well, no, I would love to speak to this a little bit. And I'd written down, the importance of embodiment at events and at, like healing retreats and whatnot. And I think this is sort of a continuation of what we started to talk about top-down and bottom-up therapies. And this is part of why I think we connected early on, because we both, I did a lot of my own personal geeking out on like, somatic experiencing and that sort of work. And then that's actually how I found Rachael. And basically, you know, what I learned that was so impactful for me, because I'd gone through years and years of therapy and doing all the things, and I'm such a heady person, and I still felt stuck and frustrated, and I was like, why is this happening? I'm doing all the work. And then I realized when I read about the brain, I was like, wait a second, my reptilian brain actually speaks in the language of breath and not words. You know, and so lots of times when we try to conceptualize or problem solve our way out of our own pain or suffering, we're not actually speaking to the part of our brain that's holding us hostage to that. And so what we need to do is actually get down deep into the body. And the funnest way for me to do that is through dance. Like, I love yoga too, I love meditation, but like, if I can move and meditate at the same time, if I can like tap into the sense of peace and ease and truth about myself while also listening to like a really great Justin Timberlake mashup, like fantastic, you know.
And if you were to have, for example, so Nadia has this teacher training where she teaches people how to become embodied teachers. And you obviously go through the transformational process of embodying these archetypes in the process of all of that. But, you know, what's really cool is as an embodied teacher, you can bring your skills to workshops, to retreats. If you are somebody who leads workshops and retreats, you can then bring that into your wheelhouse of what you offer, that will make the work you're doing with people that much more transformative. Like, how many of us feel afraid to dance? I mean, I know I've hosted lots of retreats, and because I have this, you know, background of doing ecstatic dance and 5 rhythms, and I'm a pretty solid enough DJ, I've just facilitated those experiences. And even at the retreats that I've facilitated, where we bring in, you know, a Friday night ecstatic dance party, it's like, I've had many people tell me that was the most transformative part of the entire retreat, and we did some pretty epic shit. So, you know, it's not to be overlooked, this incorporation of the body and of dance. And I think, especially as women, like, we're craving places where we can feel safe to come back into that sensualist, that playful part of us, that boss queen. So yeah.
Yeah, and I you know, most of the women who do come to the training are already really awesome at what they do in the world, and they're healing people, they are coaching people, they are teaching people in whatever modality that they are really awesome at. And they're recognizing that, oh, right, there's the body piece that's been neglected for so long, because we are in a world that really does value concepts, right, and strategies, and still like the list of here are 10 ways to get yourself out of this rut, right? But not so much, oh, well, the power and the potency of, you know, just being able to, I don't know if
are we frozen
on
Facebook?
We might be frozen. Oh no.
Well, we might be frozen on Facebook, but we're still going
We're
strong
still
on
with
Instagram.
You guys, Instagram.
Okay, well, either way, it might still be happening. Who knows? So let's wrap this up, though, because what's cool is, so I'm eventually, next year at some point, I haven't figured out the right date yet, doing a Rebloom facilitator training, where I'm going to be teaching people how to incorporate trauma resolution and healthy sex, love, and intimacy environments and experiences for their clients in their communities. And there are 6 archetypes that my program will be teaching as well, that are essentially leadership archetypes, but they're also archetypes of healthy root reclamation. And, you know, the first one's your soul seed, you reclaim worthiness from neglect. The second one's the gatekeeper, you reclaim sovereignty from exploitation. The third one is the expressionista, and you're reclaiming whole self-expression from shame and repression. And there's more archetypes, but for this part of the training, I'm going to have 6 different people embodying and co-facilitating and standing in those positions of the 6 different roles. And Nadia is going to be the expressionista person, because she has walked that journey from shame and repression to the hyper expression of that, which is like, fuck the man, fuck anybody who tries to hold me back, you know, like, screw anyone who would ever try to, like, withhold my expression, to totally dimming your light. I'm afraid of myself because I've been taught to fear myself, because I've been taught that I'm bad, that it's sinful, that it's wrong. To finally coming into that healthy, balanced, not necessarily balance, but that healthy reclamation of whole self-expression, which is I can bring from my heart the truth of all of me into the world in a way that is intended to heal myself and others, as opposed to sometimes the hyper can be intended to like give someone the middle finger. And you can be intending to heal yourself and others and still give someone the middle finger. So like there can be some edge in whole self-expression.
Yeah, that's basically me.
But you're the more you come from your heart, the more powerful your expression is.
Right.
So, it's just this cool overlap between our work, and I wanted to give Nadia I wanted to just give her a little spotlight because what she's doing is so cool. And I know so many people who are, coaches, healers, whatever, who are running workshops, who are running retreats, or who are just like wanting to have that transformation for themselves first, where they can really come into their own bodies, embodied expression of these different archetypes. And I just was like, yo, let me like just put you on the Facebook Live or Instagram Live because what you're doing is awesome and I totally want to support you. So that's basically why we have Nadia here.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add? You've got like 1 week or 2 weeks left for
applications? The deadline is next Monday, so we'll post the link underneath the videos, and but it's super easy. It's bit.ly/embody training.
bit.ly/embody training.
And we'll post it under as well. And just check it out. I'm also teaching. If you want to check out just an embody class, I'm actually teaching 2 on Zoom this week. So I'd love to have you. It's totally free. And that you can sign up also it's a bit.ly/embody Zoom.
Embody Zoom.
Yeah, one on Friday, one on Sunday. So we're shaking our booties all weekend. So come join us. We've got a really beautiful group of women who are who just really want to move from all across the world, really. So we can do this all together.
It's going to be awesome. All right. Take care. Thanks for being here, Nadia.
Thanks.